is also in Rick's range, then it's sorry, not Rick. Especially if Jack 9 suited is in the big blinds, or Jack 10 suited is in the big blinds range. Once you start to mix strong draws in with the good made hands that can be in his calling range, then you really get punished for being so aggressive, inflating the pot with one pair and no draws.
In the c-bet with 10-9 there, I would prefer to check that hand, since I think it doesn't need that much protection, since there's so many turn cards that give us more equity, that I think it's nice to have some of those middle pair hands in a checking range, so that we can not get exploited on future streets if opponents are going to treat our checks as basically giving up.
Well, and I think we're getting exploited on the current street by betting it, essentially. I think the opponent plays very well against it. He folds when he's way behind, he calls mostly when he's way ahead, and I think you just immediately lose money. I wouldn't even frame it as not getting exploited in the future.
So if I were 5xing on the button as Paul is, I would not be raising 7-deuce suited.
Word.
Yeah, I agree, Andrew.
And
you guys, I think, bet a little bit more second pair type hands than I do. But yeah, I think we're exactly on the same page in that particular situation.
So here we have a lot of interesting play. Daniel defends correctly, I think, from the big blind with king-queen offsuit, and then he check calls the flop with king-queen high, which is, I think, if he thinks that Paul is super aggressive on the button, can be good. Once he turns this jack, I think he ought to get frisky.
Yeah, I'd like to see a raise here. I think he can rep a lot of hands. Queen 9, 9-7, Jack 10, Jack 8. All these hands are squarely in his range.
Yeah.
And clearly Paul does not need a strong hand to bet.
Yeah.
I mean, as it turns out, his king queen is good anyway, but I don't think he should presume that.
Wow, he's gonna get he nailed the deuce.
Yeah, believe it or not, that's good. and this is why you have to play the king queen aggressively at some point, not just to prevent the opponent from hitting a deuce, but also just so that he can't win the pot at showdown with very weak hand. Like, the problem is when you have king queen, even some of your opponent's hands that he thought he was anyway, you really just need to fold pre-flop. Like, you don't have room to set mine,
right? And
you're really not getting a lot of new information on the flop.
You're not, but I do think Rob looked pretty comfortable. Like, so there's that. I mean, I wouldn't call to try to just get a read on the flop, but I do think if you said okay, he could have some ace king in his range, and then the flop comes, and you see that, and you say, okay, that's just not a man who's bluffing. Right. Then I think that's defensible. I think if he changed his plan, then that's really okay.
I agree, and there are some reasons why he might have changed his plan.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really want to emphasize the importance of like making your decision early, like shit or get off the pot, essentially.
Exactly.
Trying to just like treat calling as a compromise is a big.
Yeah, and I think. And again, this can be the result of sort of half digesting some modern Hold'em strategy, some modern sort of GTO type strategy, as people think like, oh, I have too much hand to fold now. I'll just like call once then fold. I'll call twice then fold, and that can be a dangerous mentality.
Interesting move by Paul to raise ace-5 offsuit on the button. I don't think a strong enough hand in a vacuum to support that sort of play, but if he believes, probably correctly, that his opponents are limping some quite weak hands, which was the case here, then I think ace-5 offsuit can be a good exploitive raise there.
Sure. Would you ever limp behind if you thought that the blinds weren't going to raise?
I would.
We're all going to have to get more entertaining.
So it looks like Rob is leaving for his plane.
So Rob, he was playing like a plane catch. He's leaving for his plane, and Rob needs to go cash out. So, yeah. So thanks for playing, Rob.
all right.
So we're
just hands party in here now.
Yeah. So we're down to 7.
Thank God.
We get an open under the gun, or under the gun +1, ace king suited by Paul.
Just hands approved play.
Yes.
Down the cutoff. This is a tough spot with 10s. I think against early position open, I don't mind flatting. I could also see a 4-bet. But Paul really hasn't been playing that much, and I think I might prefer flatting in position here.
Yeah, I definitely prefer flatting without knowing much. And I like Daniel thinking maybe this might be a good spot to 4-bet light with 7-6 suited. It's a good candidate, and Daniel's been playing a lot of hands. But ultimately, Paul just has a very strong range in early position, so good pass on that spot. So it looks like Paul calls, and I think at this stack depth, it's kind of just criminal not to be 4-betting here.
Yeah, I agree. Out of position this deep, getting a fold with an unpaired hand is pretty solid if that's our outcome.
Yeah.
And we can obviously see, I think a 4-bet is going to work a decent amount in this spot. And this is just sort of the case in point why I think that play is going to be more successful than calling out of position. And so Daniel bets 55, which I like. I think this board doesn't connect that well with Paul's range.
Because it removes some backdoor flushes, but again, like it's unclear to me, if Rick is gonna, which he should, but like let's say he has like a 9-10 of diamonds type hand, or let's 8-10 of club, he's probably not double barreling with the 8 of clubs twice.
Sure.
I think a lot of the 8 of clubs hands, Rick is going to be checking the flop.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, I actually don't really think Rick will, but I've been watching Rick play.
So Daniel's raising more here than he was before. This could be an early position thing. If he's just varying it to vary it, I don't like it. But if he's just raising more in early position and he just has a raise to $10 range from early position, that's fine. And I think under the gun, I think that Jack 10 suited belongs in that range. He's going to get 3-bet here by Ace King suited. I might make it a full 30, a little more even. I would not cold call with the Queen Jack suited on the button.
Yeah, I think that's just a fold.
But it's the button that...
It's...
And now in Daniel's shoes.
Yeah, now he's got a very clear call, I think.
Yeah, it becomes a little more interesting if Paul doesn't flat behind.
If you think that Jeff can 3-bet you light a little more often, then Paul's money can make this an attractive 4-bet target. But as it is, I think it's a good spot to just take your price.
And I think this is the angle we're going to want for the rest of the hand.
Yeah, so... This isn't. Yeah, I think Paul. You definitely need to think about this decision for a little bit longer.
I thought about
like,
it before. Yeah.
I mean, I like the call.
I do as well, but I just think it's very unlikely he's going to do that with a stronger hand.
Interesting. And I like the check here. Once you get the quick call on the flop, I think.
Yeah,
and
if you're Paul, if you didn't hit this queen, I would like betting a lot more.
Yeah, I don't like betting here.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's interesting if you know your opponent extremely well, and you can put him on. A lot of hands are gonna. All right, well, and this is
check raise. I think this is the right play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah.
You got to be worried about Ace Queen. It's a possible cold calling hand that now beats you, but I think the quick call can be a draw sometimes.
Yeah, well played by Jeff, because I think, if Paul has a worse ace, he's probably playing it this way.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he plays his flushes this way. So I think way to get max value here with Ace King.
Yeah, and it's not obvious that, stacking off with one pair at this depth in a no-limit hold'em game, not something you should always do, but I think this is a spot to go for it with the one pair. This is, as one pair hands go, this is very, very strong.
I have to think more about this check raise. It doesn't strike me as always the best play. Especially like holding the King of Hearts. But I'll think about it more. Because if you guys both like it, then it's probably good.
Some of that's exploitive. I think when you get the cold call on the button, then the quick call, I think that, wow, okay. And I think a lot of those hands are either just giving up, are either not calling the turn, or are betting the turn themselves. Whammo.
Hey, Vinks.
I don't love the turn call. I don't love the turn call to the check raise. I think that player is going to be think it's going to be hard for your queen to be any good there. So let's see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 outs. Getting, I think he's not quite getting his price. I think he has to be ahead sometimes there if he's going to call. And I think going up against the pre-flop 3-better who bet the flop, I'm just not sure you're going to see the 10-9 of hearts there ever.
Exactly, and I think that's the important thing. Like if this was like a late position opening range,
Blocker.
Yeah.
Although the right one
the other quad blocker
Yeah.
is the quads
is
itself.
the
Yeah.
quad. Yeah. Well, I meant the other 7. I just think that suit is preferable in this situation.
Oh, I understand. Got
Yeah.
it. We'll be releasing a new series soon on, you know.
When a diamond is your friend.
Yeah.
Quads, it's good to have with Just Hands Poker. So Jeff makes it 8 in the cutoff. Was he making it 10 before, or is 8 his standard size?
It's varied. I
Yeah.
think he's definitely made it 10 before.
Yeah, I'd rather see a standard size.
Yeah, I think Daniel so far has done 10 from early position, 8 from later position.
I think but I think Jeff might have exploited me here. So I think if somebody's making it 8 when he'd made it 10 before, if I have 5-7 suited on the button, I would 3-bet a lot. So yeah.
So
Right. Okay, so look, that's a more aggressive bet. He threw the chips out more aggressively there. That's a real difference from his other bets there.
Yeah.
And I think Paul's got some serious timing issues with his very clear bluff catchers, or at least in his mind, very clear bluff catchers. Not to say I think this is a clear bluff catcher. I would not be folding this hand. I think I would not also be raising this hand.
So in fairness to Paul, I really think you're right that he can be a little bit more consistent with his timing. However, the last time he did that, he had a flush draw, so not quite a bluff catcher, I don't think.
No, but I guess hands that he feels like he's always going to call.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the central issue is
Yeah.
that when he's got in his mind a clear decision, he broadcasts that a little bit too much. And again, we don't want people tanking for no reason, but yeah, it's he looks a little hasty.
And I think Paul just has so many 7s here. Jeff can fold and be pretty happy.
Or maybe Paul turns a pair into a bluff.
Jeff's-
Jeff
Jeff's
is
already
just not beating
seen
anything.
Paul play draws passively, so I think we can, pretty easily include 9-7, 8-7.
And just getting back to this hand, I think against the way Paul's been playing, just calling all these hands in late position, which I'm sure Jeff is noticing on some level.
And Zach, and I am out for the next hour.
All right. Well, we'll hang with you until the official break, which will probably be preceded shortly by Nate's arrival downstairs.
Yeah. So we got some deep stacks on the table now.
Alright, gang, we're going to play this hand and one more, and then we're going to take a real short break, probably not even 10 minutes. We just want to reset the...
Okay, yeah, Andrew's announcing the break. Nick is eating the rye bread, so it's the last hand.
Yeah.
But I hope you
Okay,
guys...
Paul.
Yeah.
Queens. Take a look at him. Looks pleased.
Yeah, looks comfortable. Greg kind of giving him the eye over there.
So Steve
as well as
folded.
Daniel.
We don't know yet what Daniel has. Daniel has 10-8, and he's getting frisky. It looks like he's going to open this.
I think this is a little bit of last hand
Three-bet
before the
this.
break figure.
Yeah, and I don't think Paul's been opening so wide that I think we need to just be 3-betting a ton of hands on the button. 10-8 offsuit just seems not quite good enough. If Daniel's picking up some sort of physical read, he would be wrong. That'd be one justification.
Well, maybe he's picking up a read on... I mean, Daniel's been playing a lot of hands. He's been playing pretty aggressively, so maybe he's picking up the read on Daniel.
I'm talking about Daniel's 3-bet, not this
Oh,
4-bet.
yeah.
This 4-bet I actually like a lot better.
I really like this 4-bet, yeah. Now Paul's just like, really, man? The last hand? You got my queen's beat?
And this is not an easy spot for Paul. I don't think Paul will fold. I think calling here is reasonable. I think...
Oh, wow.
I don't think folding is terrible to a cold 4-bet, and you don't have position.
No. He does have position. I think...
No. He doesn't have position if Daniel continues.
Oh, if Daniel
Yeah.
continues, yeah. I see.
my mic was off. Thank you, stay in school.
I like the 3-bet by Rick, but you just need to go a lot bigger with ace-king suited there, especially out of position.
I did stay in school for a long time, and I still couldn't figure out on my own to turn my mic on.
Some things you just can't learn in school.
Are we about to? No, I don't think we're going to see our second walk. I like the limp with 7-6 offsuit. I think we should see a check with 8-5.
Yep.
And we are off to the flop. This should be a snap bet with 7-6 off. I actually would not mind a fold with 8-5. Obviously, it's hard to flop a pair, but I think the vast majority
man.
of Jeff's betting range is going to be hands that have a lot of equity against a 5, including 7-6, 8-7, Queen Jack, and then obviously 10s and 9s.
It looks like the river's a 7 of spades. Oh,
Straight
wow,
flush.
Straight flush. And this is going to save Paul a lot of money.
Look at Jeff smiling. I mean, they're both smiling now, but
Did we see?
And I think Paul should not have. I like the call from Paul on the turn, but I think it's worth considering a value raise. I don't think we're going to have
Mhm.
a ton of stronger hands. We'll have some flushes. We'll have some straights in this spot, and so I think that's probably why we should call. We don't want to overrep our hand, but I think he have made that call a little.
folding is first, raising is second in the cutoff, and limping is well last place.
Yeah, good example though of not compounding your error. Where even though he called the 2, he recognized that he should not be calling the 12. And of course, making a bad call for $2 is a lot better than making a bad call for $12.
Well, you already had 2 invested though.
Making a bad call for 10 more.
Daniel P. opens this under the gun.
The suited version of this hand much better than the offsuit one. I think we gave someone a hard time for opening king queen off under the gun, but the suited version 100%.
Yeah.
I like just calling impulse shoes facing an under the gun open, especially a big one.
And he 3-bets. And I agree. I think the range that Daniel's representing, I think we just are better off calling in position.
And the suitedness, we're a little more comfortable taking a flop with it.
Uh,
That said, people have been pretty sticky in this game, so I think like going for thin value doesn't seem like it's the worst idea in the world.
And I think what's important is like a lot of people might think of hands as like, oh, this is a this is a 3-bet hand, this hand. Well,
Yeah.
it's so dependent on the positions.
Yeah.
And if you're Daniel, are you considering a fold to that 3-bet?
Yeah, I do think it's worth considering. I think you're so frequently up against queens plus ace queen ace king, all of which dominate you. So even on a board like this one where he flops top pair, we're still just going to see him check calling or possibly even check folding this turn. I love that check from Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it's hard for him to get value from second best hands barreling the turn, and I think he may now get paid off by king queen on the river. I think it's going to be a mistaken call by Daniel, but I would not be surprised if he makes it.
And unfortunately, there's not really a camera angle where we can see Daniel's face.
I think here, a lot of players feel compelled to call in Daniel's shoes because they feel like they showed weakness by, checking the turn in the river. But the truth is, it doesn't matter that he showed weakness because I don't know what hands Paul 3-bets or under the gun raise with that he really feels compelled to bluff with on this board.
Exactly.
I just don't think king queen is really beating anything.
Yeah, and even if he's 3-betting pretty wide, like he has a lot of aces here.
Right.
And that $50 bet is certainly consistent with, an ace.
It's such a disaster against, the part of the range that is not a draw.
And for the same reasons, I think continuing to bet the turn is also not a good idea.
Okay. So
They're both the ace of
no
spades.
rules. Every long-term dealer that I've asked has said they dealt out an impossible hand, like 2 queens.
Paul
but-
bumps it up to 11,
It's dealt for like 25.
which I think if anyone's paying attention, they might suspect something.
It's a larger bet sizing.
Yeah. Steve
Steve is
3-bets.
not suspicious and
No.
decides to make it 30 with ace 5 suited.
Or maybe he's suspicious and reading it the other way.
Fair enough.
Rick in a tough spot with eights.
I think
Yeah,
out
I
of
don't-
position he has a pretty straightforward fold there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
With an under the gun raise, there's still to act. I mean, I agree. It's a decision we've seen many people get wrong in the last 10 hours or so. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with an under the gun raise still to act, who's allowed to 4-bet, it's really dicey to try to call eights there.
Yeah, good job, Steve, c-betting this flop. This is, you have backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and Paul makes a very quick call.
I think he's probably trying to telegraph some strength and deter future bets.
Yeah.
'Cause he doesn't want to get bluffed off of a very vulnerable hand.
And I like the check by Steve there.
Yeah.
And I will say that I think Steve is going to call here. And it's tough because I think Steve checked back the turn thinking that this hand was going to play well as a bluff catcher. And now that he actually has to potentially catch a bluff, it's not quite as appealing.
His instinct seems to be like, I'm not good here, just based on his body language. It looks like he's more and more kind of talking himself into a fold.
And I think that makes sense because I just don't think Paul's going to have enough bluffs here. Then again, he's getting a very good price.
I don't think Steve should be folding here, just because we haven't like seen Paul, or it hasn't been shown down like Paul's post flop tendencies, and with that price and the pair of aces, I think Steve has to fold. But yeah, I think it's unlikely for Paul to be bluffing that much here.
So you said Steve has to fold, but I assume you meant has to call?
Oh yeah, I might have to call. Sorry. Flush draw that miss, so I think this is just a great spot to polarize your range and rip it in, because it's really not that much, just like, under 2x pot.
And that's why I say exploitively, because I think that for some players it will feel like a lot more than it is.
Yeah.
In
And that-
terms of
and-
Steve's current mindset, that could be.
Exactly, you might be right. I think Steve, we saw Steve making some folds or really reluctantly making calls with good prices, so I think you're right. It could be a lower bet size would be better in this spot.
I think
Daniel,
deep stack would probably shove there.
What do we make of Paul's
Not good.
cold call? Yeah.
It's another one of these just kind of trying to split the difference, thinking like ace queen's not that good, so I don't want to re-raise it again, but it seems too strong to fold. And then now all you're doing is calling and hoping to hit. And almost any time you find yourself in the calling hoping to hit, certainly when you're paying a very high price to call, which is the case here, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and I like Daniel c-betting this. Backdoor flush draw, gut shot.
Wait, I don't think Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel
P. I'm
Daniel
sorry.
P.
Okay,
3-bet
yes.
this hand.
Yes. Daniel P. is
So I think
3-bet is good.
he's very much ice. So Paul is a non-believer. We've seen him call, with ace king before, missing the flop with ace queen now, and we're certainly not going to see Paul. Well, I hope Daniel checks back,
Yeah.
but if we see him bet, Paul is certainly not folding.
I would like to
Paul
see
might
Paul
raise.
check shove
Yeah.
over a bet, and that's going to put Daniel in a really nasty spot. Daniel's going to regret betting, but we've seen.
There's just really not a lot of value in betting here. I mean, like
Yeah.
Paul has a lot of kings, and the hands that aren't kings, like Daniel's likely ahead of now. Yeah. So let's hope Paul. Yeah.
And we've got a bet of 155.
So yeah, with the effective
yeah, I
stack,
think-
it's a perfect check shove spot.
Rip it, Paul. Rip it.
Paul's
Oh.
going to call and hope to hit,
Yeah, that's.
And it does.
But see, now he might like.
But-
how much implied odds does he really have when he does hit the flush?
Well,
Okay, so 309 in the pot, or 527 in the pot, 309 in the stack. I don't think Daniel's only options here are all in or check.
Yeah.
I think all in has more merit than checking does.
Oh, Paul
He's
checked
going
it.
for it.
Paul checks.
This will be interesting whether sorry, I meant Paul's only move was all in or check. So Daniel, I guess the same is true for Daniel. The question is, is he going to consider that he might have enough showdown value to check, or is he going to feel like he should turn his hand into a bluff? He goes for it.
And Daniel goes for it.
Yeah,
I think I like that actually.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't
do
like
too. I think
Daniel's
this is
turn-
Maybe the worst hand you show up with here.
I don't like Daniel's turn bet, but once you get here like this, and Paul is playing this line really passively, it's difficult for him to have a hand that can call.
Yeah,
We're gonna
I think
have-
Daniel's turn betting range should consist of a lot of made hands that are strong enough to check back even when the flush comes in, like sets, and then a lot of spades that are semi bluffing that are either going to have showdown value or shoving for value. And on the rare occasion that he gets to the river with,
Of ours here in the booth, but it's always good not to compound mistakes, and it can be tempting to call when nothing really changes that much.
Absolutely.
Which raises a good point that if you bet as small as 50, there's a chance an ace will raise you. If you believe that's true, that would be a case for betting smaller. I am inclined to disagree with that. My experience is that most players tend to be overly passive, particularly when it comes to getting thin value, and I would be surprised to see bear trips raised there. But you're right that if an ace will raise you, there's a lot more of a case for betting just 50.
There, a raise from ace jack under the gun. That's fine. The call from 8-9 is not great, I don't think.
It's vigorous.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
How's it going to get even
No,
if he doesn't play the
shouldn't say
9?
it's fine, but yeah, it's not a huge mistake.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, calling with a connected hand in position, stacks deep.
He should be applying a lot of pressure on this flop. I do not want to see a call. Well, I guess calling and bluffing later streets is okay, but I would like to see a bet from the ace jack here, and I'd like to see a raise from the 9-8.
So the
Instead,
ace
we
jack
see
called the
passive,
flop, I
passive.
believe.
Oh, was check calling the flop?
Yeah.
With ace jack? Oh. I don't like that. I think check folding ace jack on the flop would be much better.
I think that would be better.
I would have also very much liked to see 9-8 barrel the turn.
Yeah. Once the king checks, there shouldn't be. I mean, I know we just saw somebody check call ace jack high, but I think some of the kings will. I think the king is not so scary. Once the flop goes check call.
Yeah.
Or be out of position with the ace king suited, or in position with the 9-8 suited.
I
Andrew?
will take the 9-8.
Oh, yeah, I'll take the latter. Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, so this might be an example of where 9-8 suited is typically a folding hand to a 3-bet.
Yep.
But you always have to think about stack depth and position and the dynamics. And here it's just
Exactly. It's
juicy.
That's a great disciplined fold in a different situation. One thing I tell my students when I was a teaching assistant, it's a great answer to a different question. It's a good play for a different situation.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, there's something you were talking about. I think one of the earlier premium podcasts I listened to years ago, where it's when you're deep and in position and you get 3 or 4 bet, and they kind of reveal the strength of their hand. It's like kind of a more ideal situation than not getting 3 or 4 bet.
Yes.
If they 3-bet predictable ranges.
That's what I'm saying.
But
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Trading too much information for too little immediate profit is very bad.
Yeah.
So we have a raise with the 5s. Queen 9 suited is a little bit of an ambitious call, but with position he'll be okay. The ace 8 should fold the small blind, I think. Or the ace 3 should fold the small blind. The ace 8 should fold the big blind, I think. Especially
I
at
like
this
to bet
stuff.
from the 5s.
Yep.
I think this is a very favorable flop for 5s, and betting into 3 really solid players can be dicey, but everyone here has been, or at least during the final hour, seems willing to get frisky. In which case, 5s is going to be good, awfully good here.
Yeah, and I know I can see the cards, but Paul's call had an element of what the heck in it, and there was an element of spontaneity there, and why would you call spontaneously? So you have bet call. If you're gonna call, betting the 6 is not so bad.
Yeah, I like the call by Greg. I don't think there's a ton of value in raising there.
So Paul's weighing a bluff here.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not even saying it's necessarily good, but we never see follow through on these bluffs. We see one stab and give up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that being said, I think in this specific case, that's one of the worst cards for him to bluff with, pairing the top pair card. But agreed. Overall, I think we need a lot more multi-street bluffing.
We should not fail to mention that. Nice work, not being too afraid of the ace and value betting the 9. Maybe they're doing a round of straddles to end the night, but Daniel's straddling. There's a person who he's on a run. Oh, so I'd like to see a raise here with the king 10 suited. I bet he will, given that he's off. Or a call. Okay.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
It's okay.
I think this should be a fold. See how vigorous he's feeling.
Oh, wow. I would have raised, I think. I would have raised the queen 10 offsuit, probably erroneously. Okay, so 22 on the button with ace 5 offsuit. I think that's a little aggressive.
Yeah.
I might limp behind, but
Nice
That's-
disciplined fold with the 9-7 suited. We've
Yeah.
talked a lot about people calling those hands without regard to position, and we just saw a good fold. So well done there.
And same with Daniel, folding the Jack 10
Yes.
off in the straddle.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And,
Calling and 3-betting both options for Greg.
Yeah. I would not fold given what we've seen in Paul's play.
Mhm.
And once I see the Jack of Diamonds, I don't think folding's in my plans for the flop.
Yeah, with this price, I think we have a pretty straightforward check call.
Well, he bet about half pot.
Mm-hmm.
Are you?
I've seen people do well in this
Yeah.
in this session.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people would have just called and hoped to hit in his spot.
Yep.
Mhm. Wait, that wasn't a 3-bet though. Oh,
Yeah,
you mean on the
bet
flop?
3-bet. yeah.
on the flop.
Oh, on the flop. Okay, yeah.
Eights raise. And Paul's got jacks in the cutoff.
So let's raise it.
Are those shaky hands I see? Although he has had shaking hands before in spots where he hasn't had too much.
Mm-hmm. And I like the smaller sizing if you're going to be, frequently 3-betting from the cutoff.
Daniel P's got devious thoughts with his 9-7 suited.
Yeah.
Thinks better of it.
Yeah.
It's not the worst spot.
Jeff is not folding. Can I hit a set? Yes. Do 6 king. This ought to save Jeff some money.
I wouldn't be shocked if he calls.
No, but
I don't think it's a good call, but I would not be shocked if he
I
calls.
mean, 35. Good spot to fold.
You think you should be?
Good spot to fold, Jeff.
You should be folding here to the
I
35.
think so, yeah. 6, 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think hands with backdoor draws are probably better
Yeah.
calls than the 8s.
In the slow motion check, this looks like a hand that doesn't want too much action.
And yeah, Paul should be happy to check back here.
I actually wouldn't mind a river bluff in Jeff's shoes.
Hmm. If you get that far.
Right, because it's a hand that's so weak, especially because some of his other flop peels might be like ace queen, which gets there in the river, and the hand that he might be hoping to beat on the flop was ace queen, which gets there in the river.
Yes.
So I think he has very little showdown value with the pocket eights, and could maybe just try bombing the river to try to get him off of a queen or a weak king,
Sure.
or certainly jacks.
Sure. And he actually did have 8s, so certainly he could have played 7s that way, I think.
Fair point.
This is reasoning that I find useful. Not always the best thing to do. Andrew's laughing because that was my justification for running a big bluff against him a couple nights ago.
So it looks like we're on one of
Paul
our
races.
last hands
He's got
here.
the jacks again.
Yeah.
Look at that. Little naughty grin. He's got the jacks again.
Then we're going to see a 3-bet here. Oh,
Yeah.
we got a call.
Call. Okay. I think I'd prefer a 3-bet, but
Yeah.
it's okay. The 10-4. It's ambitious. It's ambitious.
We got a last few hands vigor
Yeah.
right here.
I'd like to see a check from Paul.
Yeah. And I could see a check back from Daniel as well. I don't think
Mhm.
it's a mandatory bet.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice time to check.
Honda check. Do a Honda check.
What's your value target?
That being said, he's been betting a lot. So if you feel like you can get a call from jacks, I like the bet, but without
Maybe, but you're only getting so many calls from jacks. You can get it on a later street. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the flop.
And that ought to do it. Thank you very much to our players. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Thank you very much, Zach and Andrew, and downstairs Jack. Thank you very much to Ron, our dealer. We will be back in about an hour and a half with the evening session, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, thank you all for tuning in. This is Just Hands Poker and Thinking Poker with our live training session. See you later.